Hi, everybody.
Emily.
Thank you for joining. If you have any questions as you go through this webinar, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we'll be sure to get those answered at the end. With that being said, I'll kick it over to Shawn Litchfield, who is the Regional Vice President at P3 Propane Safety.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate everybody joining today. Welcome to the P3 webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about making Form 4 easy for Oklahoma propane marketers and anybody that services or delivers propane into Oklahoma. We usually keep these pretty quick. And today we're fortunate enough to have Shawn Caney join us from Offen Petroleum. He's the Director of Propane Operations. Shawn, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hello, how is everybody today? So I head up the Director of Propane Operations role for Offen Petroleum. We cover North Texas and Southern Oklahoma. So we do service both states, and then we also have a wholesale division out of Missouri that comes into Oklahoma as well. So, Shawn.
Perfect. So Shawn, why don't we just jump right into it? Maybe you can just explain a little bit, about Form 4 and what Oklahoma requires, essentially.
So for the Oklahoma propane marketers, the Oklahoma LP Gas Administration is the governing jurisdiction over the propane industry. So they have a Form 4 that they've had in place for some time. The Form 4 is a record of pressure test and leak test, and is required prior to injecting gas into any new customer to us, or any system that we have not touched in 2-year time period. And then also any circumstance that falls under NFPA 54, such as a interruption of service, report of a gas leak or gas odor, an out of gas situation, or any section of new or modified gas piping per NFPA 54 specs. So what we do is the record of leak test pressure test is recorded on the Form 4. There is a inspection of the customer system that includes the tank regulator, as well as a visual inspection of appliances and a record of appliance manufacturer. That form is then sent to the Oklahoma LP Gas Administration within 15 days of the test being completed, and the information and keep that information in Oklahoma City.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Okay, so first off too, Shawn, you were instrumental in helping us get the P3 form approved by the state of Oklahoma as well. So we kind of developed that digital process that would satisfy the Form 4 requirement by the state there. Could you talk just a little bit about your process before the digital side of P3, and then maybe how P3 has helped or changed that?
I'll be happy to. So because we service Texas and Oklahoma, multiple states, we try to keep the same platform in both states. So what was happening was my technicians were going up to us customers, and we were performing our safety inspection form through P3. And then at the conclusion of that, we then had to take the paper format of the Form 4 and transfer that information over to the paper format, and then present that to the customer for signing both documents. That way we were able to retain the P3 safety inspection for that customer, as well as the photo inspection that we do, as well as complete the requirement for the state of Oklahoma on the paper form. So when we presented this to your team, we basically had to mirror the Form 4 to get an approval from the Oklahoma LP Gas Administration. What your team had done was to take the safety inspection, the system inspection, and augmented it where when we put in an Oklahoma address, that safety inspection could then be printed off as the safety inspection or as the Form 4 in electronic format. So the great thing about electronic format is no more coffee spills, rain, everything else on there. It's legible, so you can actually read the information that was input. And then the benefit is we can just then email that on to the Oklahoma LP Gas Administration and eliminate the snail mail per se, where we had to put them in an envelope, stamp them, send them on up. We have not yet done the auto email. That is an option that's some functionality that's available through P3, where upon completion of the Form 4, it would get emailed directly to the Oklahoma LP Gas Administration. I've not addressed that functionality yet, just simply because I still want to kind of review them as training purposes present themselves. I utilize that review process to better the form and make sure that we're filling everything out. Not as necessary anymore, since the P3 Form 4 has obligatory sections that you have to fill out. So it really has minimized the blank spots, the incorrect information that I used to have training on with our weekly tailgate talks that I have with the technicians.
Gotcha. Yeah. And maybe this actually sounds like a good time. Emma, do you mind if I share my screen here? I think what I'll do, Shawn, is kind of go through that process. I'll show the entry side of P3. So let me make sure I do this right. Okay. Can you guys see my screen okay now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay. So we're talking here, in this example about a safety inspection, and to Shawn's point, all you have to do is plug in an Oklahoma address, and I've already set one up here. And when you do, it's going to automatically populate with the information that we need. So you can see highlighted in orange, Oklahoma Form 4 required data. So for that information, we're going to make it a requirement, of course, for entry. I'm going to fill out a standard sort of full safety inspection, because to Shawn's point before too, that also is their company policy, is to get that safety inspection. And then when you're doing that, you're also creating Form 4 for this LP Gas Administration. So we'll go ahead and enter that. And you can accommodate for any multiple appliances, if you will. Just for the sake of moving through this, I'm gonna just do one of each here, but same thing with containers. So we're gonna need the information about the container, highlighted in orange for our required fields. And you can also see kind of the ease of entry. Does not take long. The drop downs, once you get familiar with it, it is a simple process. Move through that. This is just kind of that quick insurance driven page. Is it jurisdictional? Did we cap any gas lines or not apply? Our piping, again, part of the safety, not necessarily Form 4, but can't hurt to add to it. And then now we've got our regulator information, which is a critical part of that. And we'll get past that. And then we're going to get into our system operating tests and our pressure tests. I'll do an integral system. Again, it's a little bit easier instead of having to document a couple of things here. All right, and then our pressure test. And I'm gonna do something incorrect on purpose for a moment, just to also show something. And flow and lockup, if you're gonna conduct that, then great. We certainly recommend folks do. So just wanted to show the technology, and Shawn kind of touched base on some of this, but this is how we're coaching users in real time, making sure that they, if they are making an error, they're aware of it, but not just that it happened, but the why behind it, and what the error was. So the error recognition technology is going to pick up that there's a non-compliant pressure test, incorrect test procedure. And well, sure enough, I go back to code, NFPA 54, Chapter 8, Section 8.1. It notes that I have to document my pressure test prior to a leak check, not afterwards. So let me update my information appropriately. And when I do, it lets me right through. Here is that email section where Shawn had mentioned if you did so choose to email the state directly, you can do that. But to Shawn's point, if you're going to review these forms, then you could leave that blank and it'll just basically be at the office, the digital copy found in P3. And then here, the last bit of the Form 4 requirement. We'll fill this out. And you can plop some comments in here if you wanted to. Once I complete it, my final sanity check of my document. And then here we've got our initials as required by Oklahoma LP Gas Administration, signing off and signing off as the inspector, save. So now we are saving the document, a digital file is being created on that customer's account, and we've generated two forms, the safety inspection as well as Form 4. And because we conducted a safety inspection, our system is going to automatically prompt us to conduct a photo inspection, which is recommended best practice at the time of that safety. I'm going to spare us that to save the time. But upon completion, I can go a couple different ways to find this documentation. I've gone into the account list, selecting my location, get into my P3 account details. And here, any document I need is cataloged by date and by type of inspection. So you can see I've created my safety inspection. I've created my Form 4. Here's what that Form 4 is going to look like upon completion. And this, I guess, Shawn, is kind of where you would be reviewing the documents, making sure they're good, save the PDF, email to the state, correct?
Correct. But as we review more and more of these, the review process is minimalized compared to what we were getting with the handwritten, just simply because you have within the system, you have help boxes, so that if it's, a driver has a question about what's supposed to go into that box, they can hit the question mark and it explains the leak test procedure or the pressure test procedure. So really the internal training within the form itself is beneficial as well. Because we can't all remember everything. So sometimes having the cheat sheet, as I refer to it, when I tell the guys to use the cheat sheet, that comes in very handy, because it gives the actual code to somebody who may not be as code versed as a technician or a supervisor.
So that's a great point, Shawn. And I'll just assuming we're still at the same location, an example of the interruption of service, and kind of to Shawn's point, drilling in and the detail behind and what's involved, and just it's a wealth of information for the user. This is just the example of the leak check mobile professor. So, it literally gets into conducting a leak check, using a water manometer, using a block gauge or test block. So just a lot of information that's going to make sure we're educating the user and certainly informing them as to the proper way to go about something. So you see the Form 4 requirements again for the interruption of service works the same way as the mobile safety inspection, only the interruption of service is a much quicker document, if you will. I am just tying back here, showing the P3 desktop, the administrative side of P3, to just show a second way of kind of identifying where these forms have come in from the field. So I've gone to our activity report here, which shows anything that comes in from P3, and you can see that you know, the form 4 is one of those items, and it's another sort of click through, and it brings you directly to that document. So a couple different ways of getting to the documentation as an example. So yeah, so I think, you know, Shawn, you consider this a fairly simple process from an entry standpoint?
Yes, very, very simple. Especially my technicians. My technicians have been used to the digital format and entering it on an Android tablet for some time now. The drivers that have been accustomed to the paper form are adapting very well to the electronic form. And it's the input is very, very easy, very self-explanatory, you know, and it really assists with nothing getting missed, because if they hit continue, it's going to flag something and say, are you sure you want to continue? And go from there. So a great system, great tool that we've been using for some time on the Texas side, and we're glad to see it go across to a tool that we can use on the Oklahoma side as well.
Nice. And so we've talked through, I guess, the field folks, you know, utilizing it, your technicians and drivers, things like that. How has this helped from the office side of things as well? Because you kind of had probably a way you were doing it before, and now something that hopefully has streamlined it to make it a little bit easier on yourself as well.
It's streamlined it very much. So where the review process is minimized, because I can just click on it, review it, and then I just let the CSRs know to go ahead and email it. So they're pulling those files probably about every 2 to 3 days, and then just zipping them off in an email. Like I said before, we used to have to, you know, separate the different copies and mail them off and all that. And this is very much minimized. And then it's also eliminated the need for us to scan them in. We used to scan them into the system so that we had a record of them kept electronically within the customer's account. We don't have to do that anymore, since most of the customer accounts are linked to the P3 reports directly in the back office. So we click on P3 reports, and it opens up our P3 window, normally to that direct customer. And then we can click and view it as a safety inspection, or we can view it as a Form 4. You know, we can view the pictures. You know, I always swear by the pictures, because if, you know, a driver says, hey, I've got a leaking bonnet out here, a lot of times I can just open up P3 and open up the pictures, try to figure out what type of bonnet we're dealing with, so that when we go out, we're prepared for the job. You know, before and after pics of repairs being made, you know, make repairs in the ground, you know, and pull a measurement, and that way we know where couplings are. So just a great all-around tool. The drivers using the photo inspection, they're starting to use it more frequently. And you know, they helps in our back office as well, because they'll actually take pictures of the tank location or the front of the home, and our back office, we can actually see that picture that we've saved within our back office. So when the driver is going out there, he has an idea of where to look for the tank. You know, sometimes underground tanks, you know, later in the day, kind of hard to find them, or they're concealed by a shrub, or, you know,
Sure.
It makes it a lot easier and more efficient to get all that done.
Nice. And in the back office, so Cargus, right? So that
Correct.
there's that benefit too with the Cargus integration, and P3 being, we have the integration going with a majority of the backend softwares out there, and Cargus has been a great partner. So I don't know if there's anything to add there, Shawn, but yeah, the ease of just navigating both systems, it's not duplicate data entry. It's just they work together.
Correct. And it's a lot less time of files building up, waiting to be scanned in, and then trying to attach them and all that. It was great to have, but now it's just so much easier just to click the P3 reports. A lot of times we just put in the notes, Form 4 completed in P3, and that just directs us to go to the P3 reports to see that. Rather than trying to scan it in and save it within the notes section on the customer.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you for tying it back to Form 4 because we digressed a little bit. But
Yep.
So with that said, I know we're kind of coming up. We typically do these for 20 minutes. Shawn, is there anything else that you'd want to add, just as it relates to Oklahoma Form 4, the P3 relationship, or anything on your end?
Nothing I can think of. Directly with you putting me on the spot, but as you know, I know a lot of marketers up in Oklahoma. If anybody has any questions, about it, just feel free to give me a holler or a text, and I'll be happy to answer on it offline. But just a great all around tool, and we're appreciative of Oklahoma LP Gas Administration, being open to accepting the electronic format, and trying to give us other options rather than the paper format.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thank you for the kind words, Shawn, and really do appreciate your time. So, I don't know, Emma, any questions come in from the field?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, great. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to Offen Petroleum. We really appreciate it. And yeah, I guess we'll call this good. So thank you, Shawn.
Excellent.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Y'all have a good afternoon. Stay safe.
Thanks, Shawn. Bye, everybody.